Hello, everybody. My name is Dave Jackson, he, him,
And I'm Steve, or Blinkoom, also he, him.
and this is Tales from the Backlog, where each week I'm joined by a guest to deep dive a game from our backlogs. Today, we're going to be talking about Ghost Trick Phantom Detective on the podcast. But if this is your first time here, a few quick things. First of all, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you checking out a new show. If you like the show, please consider supporting however you can. There are ways to do that monetarily, best on Patreon, patreon.com/realdavejackson. But also tell a friend about the episode, share in the Discord servers that you're in. All that stuff is really helpful. And if you're worried about spoilers for Ghost Trick, don't worry, we're not going to spoil the story for you for quite some time. There will be a timestamp down in the show notes for when the spoilers begin, and we'll also say it. So until that point, you're safe. This is a mystery story, and we're not going to spoil that mystery. So now, at the beginning of the show, you heard Steve's voice. Steve is back on the show. If you don't know him, he's one of the hosts of Indie Quest and Polykill podcast. He also streams a bunch of cool games on Twitch, and he's capable of possessing household objects. Steve, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. I can possess them, but I can only interact with them in very minor ways. You know, I can wiggle the cushion off of a couch or maybe swing a lamp from one side of the desk to the other. But
Right.
anything beyond that is a little more outside my abilities.
Just making things slightly more inconvenient for other people in the house. Yeah.
Yeah. Take, bring your tea down like 10 degrees or something like that. That's the extent of my powers.
Well, it's good to have you back here. Longtime listeners of the show will recognize Steve from the Void Stranger episode, which is a very cool and weird game. We're back for another cool and weird game today. I'm happy to talk about Ghost Trick with you.
Yeah, this one is, I would say, maybe more straightforwardly cool and weird. It's
Yes.
less. I don't have to do quite as much unpacking of what I think of game design writ large when I play this one. This one I just kind of have a great time working my way through. But yes, thank you so much for having me back on. Always a pleasure. I'll be happy to hop on anytime, and was happy to get the call.
Of course, yeah. So our game today is Ghost Trick Phantom Detective. It is a puzzle adventure game developed and published by Capcom for the DS in 2010. The game also received an HD remaster in 2023 for PC and contemporary consoles. So you can play this outside of the DS, finally. And I know fans were calling for getting the game onto modern systems for quite some time, so it finally happened here. The directors of the game are ShuTakumi, who's best known for Ace Attorney, and Takumi is also credited for design and writing on Ghost Trick, and co-director with Atsushi Maruyama. Producers Hironobu Takashita and Shingo Izumi. Composers for the soundtrack Masakazu Sugimori and Yasumasa Kitagawa. I'm really pushing my luck for how many Japanese names I can say in a row. And then principal art credit, Koki Kinoshita. Okay, I think I got them. There we go. A lot of like stellar work on especially like art, music, writing, and things like that as we go through Ghost Trick here. Now, if you don't know what Ghost Trick is, we have our quick pitches per usual at the top of the show. I say Ghost Trick is an adventure game where you play as a ghost who can only make or break Rube Goldberg machines. Steve, what would you say?
I love that. I had it as a combination of the Incredible Machine and that feeling you get when you drop something on the floor of your car's passenger seat and you're trying to reach it while driving, but it's like 3 inches out of your grasp.
Yeah.
You can't quite get there.
Yeah, a lot of time spent swinging the stylus. Like if I can only get like a couple more inches, I can make that jump to the next object in this game.
Yes. And it's like obviously well designed to stop you from getting where you shouldn't, but so often I'm like, are you sure you can't get me like 1 more inch there, Cecil? Come on.
Exactly. I played this for the episode on the DS. It took me 10 or 15 hours. It doesn't keep track. I can't find the hour count. So I played the DS version of the game. I have not played the remaster. Steve, I know when we talked, you said you had played the DS version before. Is that what you replayed for this podcast here?
Nope. So I played the DS version back near when it came out, and then this time I played the HD remaster to kind of get a feel for what had changed. I went back and I played a chapter or two on DS for comparison, but I played my 12, 13 hours primarily on the remaster.
Okay, cool. There'd be a couple things when we talk about gameplay where I'll be excited to hear like maybe some quality of life that was possibly added in the update. So, let's see. So Histories with Ghost Trick. So this was actually picked for the show. In the Tales from the Backlog community, every year we run a fantasy critic league, and the only thing that I can offer to the winner, besides, everlasting respect and bragging rights and things like that, is they can pick a game for the podcast from my backlog list. I have, my big How Long to Beat backlog list. It's got like 400 or 500 games on it. And the winner of the Discord Fantasy Critic League, Dan from Canada, picked this game out of that list. And as soon as I think they picked it, or maybe it was in a Patreon poll a long time ago, and I remember like, Steve, you had commented like that you hope that it won. So I knew like if I end up playing this, Steve would be the person to ask to come on the show. So what brought you to this originally? Was it like, had you played Ace Attorney before this and wanted to like follow up with those creators? What was it?
It wasn't as much following up with the creators, but yeah, back in the DS era, I was playing a lot of like Ace Attorney and Professor Layton and games like that. And I think I was just kind of always looking for another kind of mystery, story heavy, light puzzle sort of game. And so when this one came out, not only did it meet all that, but also it did have some buzz back in the day, as it was a relatively mid to late-ish DS game, and people were kind of holding it up as one of the better releases on the handheld. And I after playing it, I agree with that. And so, yeah, I played it back then. I loved it, but one of the reasons I was really excited to come on and talk about it is it gave me a good excuse to replay it. I mean, if you think about it, this came back in 2010. That's at this point over 15 years ago, or right around 15 years ago. And so I loved the game, but I could have told you very little in the way of specifics about the game. I don't know if this ever happens to you where there's a game that you really care a lot about or that you really love, but all the minute to minute, all the mechanics, all the details sort of like fall off in a road in the seas of time, and all you're left is just with like a very positive feeling without much to bring to like a structured debate about why you love it. And so this was my excuse to beef up my chops and remind myself why it's so good.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, that happens to me all the time. And especially like before I started the podcast, when I was, if like, quote, all I did was play the game and enjoy it and then moved on to the next game, as if that's, like a subpar experience or something. The podcast really helps me like codify some of those things and like really remember some of those details. But there's a lot of stuff that I like played 6 months before starting the podcast they're in like just the good feeling zone, and I don't remember a whole lot of specifics. So, well, glad you could get a chance to replay this. And I'm glad that Dan picked this from my big list, because I had never played this before, and I've never played an Ace Attorney. I've also never played a Professor Layton. This is like I have a very sparse history with adventure games in general, like point and clicks. So I think most of them have been like, I played The Secret of Monkey Island for the first time for this podcast like a couple years ago. So this is like, it's, it doesn't feel unfamiliar, but it's out of my wheelhouse. I had a DS back then, but I didn't get anything like this. So I was happy to play it. And I'm happy to have played it now because I think the game is good, first of all. It runs into, for me, a lot of the same blocks that I run into in every single adventure game that I play, where you will come up against a puzzle where the logic that they're asking, I can't get there for some reason. And it's not like a consistent thing. It's just like every one of these games, there's a couple of puzzles that I'm just, if I spent a whole summer playing this game when I was a kid, I probably would have figured it out eventually, but that's not how I play games anymore. So same block as always. This game doesn't have like moon logic shit that like a lot of the older point and clicks got into, but I did get into some of those things where like I'm looking at the screen and I'm like, I've tried everything. And the reality was I had tried everything except the one thing the one other possibility that I didn't think of, and that was the answer. But as far as adventure games go, it's pretty rare, for me at least, for that to happen. So I did enjoy that. And this game's story was a lot of fun to go on the ride. I don't love the ending, but an ending that I don't love doesn't really ruin the ride of a story for me. It is a fun game. It is a really charming game. It's funny. The music is very upbeat and boppy. It's just like a very charming game. And so I'm glad to have played this. I kind of feel like this is the most I will ever enjoy, like a point and click adventure game is something like this. Unless it's like a very modern one that is not really rooted in the same type of puzzles as these kind of older ones are. So I'm glad to have played it.
Yeah, I think, it's funny. You're not wrong in calling it a point and click, but for some reason, my brain has never even really made that connection to this being an adventure game because it is so puzzly, and maybe it's because the act of pointing and clicking is also the same as the act of navigation, which we'll get into. But thankfully, like you said, it doesn't get too obtuse with the puzzles. What I really do appreciate about the game overall is like when I looked back at the game, remembering why I loved it so much, it's that charm that you talked about. It's a game that is unapologetically playful, and it's still telling its own version of a serious story, but it's not taking it that seriously at the same time. The entire time it's kind of like glancing out the screen of the DS being like, you having fun with this too? Like, you having a good time?
Yeah.
So it just, you leave it feeling like it just leaves a big dopey smile on your face.
Yeah. I don't know if it's like correct to call it a point and click. It's not one of like the inventory puzzle, like point and clicks where it's like, I got a rope and a stick and a tube of glue, and I need to figure out how to put them together so I can get across this creek or whatever. Like, it's not one of those, but it lives in the same type of zone for me. So, had a good time with it overall. Let's take our first music break. Let's listen to a bit of that music. We'll come back. We'll reset. We'll set up what the story is all about, and we'll get into why both of us are calling this such a charming experience. So, in Ghost Trick Phantom Detective, you play as a character named Sissel, whose consciousness awakes in a junkyard right next to his dead body. His dead body is on like the key art for the game. You see that like hunched over on the ground, like that comically lying on the ground dead pose. That's Sissel. He's dead. He's in the junkyard. You wake up out of your body, and you kind of like come to in this junkyard, and there's this scene where this like very classic like 30s, 40s gangster is pointing a shotgun at a woman nearby. And Sissel finds out from a talking lamp right next to him named Ray, the Ray of Light. Ray helps Sissel understand that as a spirit outside of his body, he's got these new ghost powers where you can manipulate objects and rewind time to save people from dying, essentially. So that's like the general setup is we have this mystery of number one, Sissel doesn't remember who he is, like why was he in the junkyard? Why did he get killed? Who was he in his life? He doesn't remember any of those things. And then you're immediately put into this scene where this gangster is trying to kill this woman in the junkyard. So you gotta try to prevent that from happening because, she's cool. You don't want Lynn to get killed in the junkyard. And that sets off this spiraling mystery as we go through the rest of the game. As you try to avert this threat, you try and save people's lives throughout the game and also try to figure out about your identity. And we're not going to talk too much about like where that goes. I will say right at the beginning that the unfolding mystery as you go through Ghost Trick is really fun. It's really entertaining. Basically, every chapter ends with some kind of like plot twist or like emergency that's happening somewhere else. So there's always like a good momentum to the story. I played this, it's broken up into a lot of different chapters. I feel like a lot of DS games are really good at this, at like breaking the game up into playable chunks.
Yeah.
And I always finished a chunk and I was like, time to shut off Ghost Trick, but I can't wait to pick it back up and see what's going on in the mystery next.
Yeah, exact same thing happened to me, and sometimes maybe do 2 or 3 of those back to back, but it does always feel like every end of chapter is a great break point. When Sissel wakes up, he is told by Ray, it's very Death Note adjacent, where he's given like this like list of kind of arbitrary rules that govern his ability as a ghost. And one of them is that he's told that he will have these powers until dawn, until the end
until
of
the
this
end
night.
of the night. Yeah.
And so the chapters it's very 24, where the chapters are anywhere from like 15 minutes to an hour of in-game real time. And so like the interactions that you see with these characters, and like, you know, when Lynn's held up at gunpoint in the junkyard, the 10 minutes that it takes for that situation to unfold and, you know, quote unquote resolve itself is 10 minutes in game, and then something urgent comes up and you pop over. So you're always like feeling the pressure. You always kind of have that countdown clock, and you always want to see like, oh, can I squeak out the next little bit here before dawn comes?
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, when this was brought up, the countdown, I was kind of worried. I was like, oh, if I take too long, am I going to like run out of time and fail the game? I don't think that's possible. I think you're stuck in like specific times in specific chapters. But for a second there, until I was like, well, I put the DS down and I went and made dinner and everything was fine. Like for a while I was thinking like, oh man, I better like, because they're like, you can reset to the beginning of a chapter. And I was like, am I going to have to like reset and do things faster to save time? Don't worry about that if you're thinking about playing this.
No, and it makes sense that you felt that way, because the actual like puzzle solving and the scenes that you're in are on literal timers. And sometimes, if you do set the DS down, they will resolve unpleasantly, but the larger story doesn't. Yeah.
Let's just mention what those ghost powers are, and then we can kind of revisit those when it comes to gameplay. So Sissel is outside of his body, and he's got a couple of powers that he can do. He can move into objects around the environments and possess them, and do what they call in the game a ghost trick. And for Sissel, that means like manipulate the object slightly. Like if there's a ball on a shelf, he can maybe roll the ball off the shelf. If there's a lamp, he can swing it around on its hinge. Stuff like he can open a cabinet and stuff like that. That's about the extent of his powers there.
And he will, throughout the course of the game, like try stuff that is too much for him, like the equivalent of him trying to bench more than he's able to. And we'll comment on like, oh, I can't do that. Or he'll like look around the scene and to be like, everything here is like too heavy or too significant for me. I need something, I need like a flag or something that I can actually handle.
Yeah. Something light, something small. Yeah.
Yep.
So we have that manipulation. And then the big thing, like the kind of thing that sets up your puzzles in the game, is you will often come into a scene and somebody's dead, or someone dies right when you get there, and you can inhabit newly dead bodies. I was never quite sure on like, what's the cutoff for this, but you can inhabit newly dead bodies. Like in the first scene, the gangster kills Lynn, the woman that's in the scene. So you go inhabit Lynn's body, you talk to her, and you can rewind the clock to 4 minutes before their death. It's always 4 minutes. And then do what you can with your object manipulation powers to prevent this from happening. This is why I said Rube Goldberg machines in the elevator pitch, because it usually amounts to like, I knock a baseball off of a shelf, which falls onto a seesaw and pops something else out over the scene. And then that thing hits this thing, which then drops onto someone's head. I'm just making up something, but a lot of them are either make something like that or stop something like that from working. And that's how you solve the puzzles in the game. I guess we're talking about gameplay now, so we'll just go on with this. Yeah.
We're just in there now. Yes, and a lot of like the basic rhythm is you can often like immediately see your goal. Like it's pretty clear what you need to stop or prevent. If someone gets shot, I got to stop that guy from shooting them. Usually the first part of the puzzle you end up needing to solve is getting from one side of the screen to the other, because Sissel can only jump a relatively short distance from object to object. Very frequently you'll see something that is clearly going to benefit you in this situation, and you won't be able to reach it. And so your first goal is to use the stuff that you can access to, like you said, roll a tire down a metal beam or something like that, so that the tire rests kind of halfway between where you are and where the stuff you want to get to is. So you have a hop point, a connection point to get over there.
Yeah. And I had mentioned like some issues that I had with like the logic of some of these puzzles. I think the issues that I had were generally spread out between those different parts of the puzzle. Like sometimes it's like, well, the scene is set and I'm kind of stuck over here. I need to go all the way over there. And I just like don't see something that I can do. So what you really need to do is you need to possess every object in the scene. Sometimes there's like, in the earlier levels, there's like a reasonable number where you're like, I know what's important in this scene. Yeah. And then later on, there's a lot of stuff, and it's not always clear what are your key objects in a scene. So you got to spend that time. You got to really like inhabit everything, possess everything. You always get a little thing that says like a little button to examine it. You'll get some more info. Sissel will comment on like whatever you're looking at. Sissel doesn't remember anything. So like a lot of times you'll like inhabit something and he'll be like, I don't know what the fuck this is, but maybe I can make some use of it. Or like he can't read. So sometimes you'll be like, I think like it would be awesome for me, the player, learning about the mystery if I could inhabit this note that this cop is carrying. But Sissel can't read, so it doesn't like it's not really helpful in that way. But sometimes the puzzle is like this cop is carrying something. While he walks by, I need to jump into the thing that he's carrying. Then he'll carry me across the screen. Stuff like that. And I want to say like I think there's like 18 chapters. I probably got that like block in 5 of them, and they were all in like the second half of the game where I had to go check a guide and stuff like that. Because I think that these games, this is what reminded me of the adventure game stuff, is like, I think what you're probably supposed to do is put the game down, try again tomorrow, and then if you don't think of anything, try again the next day. And then eventually you'll kind of work it out. And that's just when I sit down and I'm like, I want to play Ghost Trick. I don't want to set it down and not play Ghost Trick, so the walkthrough helped out a lot. What was your experience with this? Like, jumping between stuff, solving those navigation puzzles and stuff like that?
Generally pretty good. I would say there's probably maybe like 2 of them that I ended up getting stuck on. Now, maybe I was yanking 15-year-old puzzle solutions out of the back of my brain or something like that. Hard to say. One thing I appreciate about how the puzzles are set up is that because they'll often do that, where like there'll be like sections of the scene and getting from A to B is your first puzzle to solve. It means that you don't get that overwhelm right away, because you can like pan around and look at a whole scene and maybe collectively there's 20 interaction points. And I would like see that and I would think to myself, that's way too much. Like my brain starts running with like the math of every order of all these things that I could ever do and how many options that's going to include. But then when you realize like, okay, actually I'm kind of limited to these 4 until I figure out how to make these 4 work together. And then that's going to give me a bridge. And it might require me to go back to those 4 later, but oftentimes once I've like navigated to the other side of the room, now I'm tinkering on this side until I figure out the solution that I'm going for.
Yeah.
And so the puzzles do a good job of like making you feel smart, where they appear more complex than they maybe initially are. And so you solve them in a relatively linear logical order and it all works out, which is a lot to say about a game that, like you said, you're bouncing tennis balls off of fulcrums that are launching a salt shaker across the room to land on a rat that scares it, and it's like,
Yep.
like it sounds Moon Logic until you actually play it, but yeah.
Yeah. I think within the scene, like you said, to the game's credit, when you see someone get killed or you show up and someone's dead and then you rewatch the scene that shows them dying, it's always very clear, like, I need to stop this one thing. Now, how do I get over there? That's most of the puzzle. And then eventually they'll put you on a timer. And so there are some like timed things where it's like, I need to execute this, this, and this within a certain number of jumps, a certain number of ghost tricks, and that'll stop this killing machine from taking this person out. Also, to the game's credit, you can only do the ghost tricks on probably less than half of the objects in most of the environments. Like most of the objects are just there to help you move across the level. And there's a lot of ones that you can possess, even if it's just to give you a bridge between important object here and important object over there. And these scenes, as they're drawn, are really, really detailed. There's a lot of objects. There's a lot of stuff in like these offices, and you start the game in a junkyard. It's full of trash and full of stuff that's been thrown away. I mean, it's a cool like art thing, because you spend a lot of time just looking at this one room. And so there's a lot of detail to like appreciate from an art perspective, but from a gameplay perspective, there's a lot of stuff you can interact with, but only a certain few that you have to put into your puzzle calculus, if that makes sense. And that's really, really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I did occasionally run into some issues. I would say probably going back to what you said about the timing, that is where I often ran into the most problems. When you first get to a scene, you know, Sissel can rewind 4 minutes back from the point of this person's death. They'll play back kind of the events immediately leading to how this person died. And that playback is not a 4-minute long video that you're watching. It's usually like 20 seconds. But then when you're actually playing it, you have 4 minutes to solve the puzzle, which means that all the individual actions that happened leading to this person's death will happen throughout the course of that 4 minutes. So, you know, if someone runs on screen, looks around, turns back, walks to the other side of the room, says some dialogue, and then murders a person, after like 1 minute of play, they'll walk to the other side of the room. And then after like another minute and a half of play, they'll say that line of dialogue. And sometimes people will need to be in certain positions or doing certain actions for you to rube your way into success. And it just wasn't always clear to me when they were going to move. Sometimes it felt like it would happen really fast. Sometimes it felt like I was just like sitting there waiting for them to move for a minute and a half of downtime. And then other times you could prompt dialogue or like kind of prompt the next step in the chain of events, but it wasn't always the case. So there was a little bit of like just friction with not fully understanding how the systems were working that sometimes made the puzzles a little tricky to solve.
Yeah. A lot of times, like especially in the back half of the game, it's very clear what you need to prevent, but it's not always clear like, how am I going to use the stuff that's here to prevent that? And that's like, I mean, that is what the puzzle is. Like if you just say it straight out like that, but things change a lot throughout the course of these scenes, like replaying. And so stuff that in like later on, you may have to jump between like multiple locations to influence events so that you can stop the death. Thinking of one puzzle in particular where I definitely had to go check the guide, which maybe we can talk about in the spoiler section. One of my biggest like friction points with this is if you fail, because we get on that 4-minute timer, we're going to prevent the death. If you fail and if the person dies, it will rewind you back to one of two checkpoints. One at the very beginning of the scene, and then there's usually like a midway checkpoint where they call like you've changed someone's fate in some way. It doesn't mean you've like prevented the death, but you've changed someone's fate in some way, and it'll set a checkpoint. My biggest source of friction is late in the puzzle. Like you said, maybe I'm in like the last seconds and I'm trying to do the timing thing. And I just like, I biff this sequence of 6 things I need to do. I have to go all the way back to way earlier in the scene, watch all that shit again to get back to the ending point where I made the mistake. Maybe I don't even know what my mistake was. It just didn't work. And so I have to go all the way back. It felt like I wanted a more granular, like, checkpoint system, or like, can I rewind to the last jump that I made, the last ghost trick that I did, something like that. It was like legitimately pretty annoying in the late chapters because they just get so much more complex.
Yeah.
To have to go back and like, I got to listen to all the dialogue again. I got to do the little things. I got 10 things I got to do to get to this one thing I'm going to try toward the end of the puzzle. That was my biggest source of friction here.
Yeah. And I know that was one of the things you were probably hoping the remaster fixes. I don't think that they do.
Okay.
There is an option to manual save. And I guess I didn't try this, but the impression I got is not that it is like, it didn't feel like it was checkpointing me at that point. It felt like I just could save and start back at this chapter later if I didn't want to wait till the end of a chapter to save my game.
The DS version has the manual save, but it's just like saving that I got as far as I got past a checkpoint. And if you load it back up, you'll be right back at that checkpoint.
Yeah. So it's I don't think they've really done anything to change it in the remaster there. One thing to the game's credit is they're pretty good about communicating to you when you've like irreversibly damaged the situation, like when you've made a mistake. So if you, I don't know, if you nudge a muffin off a table and it lands on the ground and you're going to need that muffin later, Sissel will usually like opine to himself, like, I kind of get the feeling like maybe I shouldn't have nudged that muffin off the table.
Yeah.
I don't know. It
maybe
seems
I
like
should
this
restart.
Yeah. It seems like this isn't going so well. And so at least it stops you from like 3 more minutes of experimentation to learn that mistake. Usually it was pretty obvious to be like, clearly I just need to jump back and start over again.
Yep. Yeah, that is nice. I definitely appreciated that. And I definitely trusted it. Like every time Sissel is like, yeah, we should rewind. I think I messed up somewhere. And you're like, yeah, okay, I got it. Now, that's like some friction that I had. And I had my classic like puzzle game, adventure game. You know, if the game has 20 puzzles, I'm not going to know how to do 2 of them. Just guaranteed in basically every puzzle game. I'm going to run into puzzles where I'm like, I don't know what you want from me. And like I said, with the kind of way that I play games, I'm not great about just setting it down and sleeping on it and coming back the next day. So I did run into that. To the game's credit, the last puzzle in the game, which I thought was going to be a nightmare because it was like, 4 out of the previous 5 chapters I needed to walk through to get through the puzzle. The last chapter of the game made total sense to me. I had a great time going through the last puzzle, and it's not the most elaborate, but it's like, it's not a cakewalk of a puzzle either. So it just a nice little like ending to it. And I don't know about you. Like sometimes I'll get in it if I'm frustrated by the gameplay side of a game. Sometimes it will not let me enjoy the end of the story because I'm still tilted about gameplay. Probably my most like regretful version of this is I got so mad at the sequence of events in the end of Outer Wilds that I just like couldn't pay attention during the ending because I was so mad at what I had to do to get there, which is like a tragedy because the ending of that game is amazing, but not for me in that moment. So appreciate it when like this final puzzle was just like, I don't know, Dave coded or something, and I could just enjoy the revelations about the mystery.
It's funny you say that because I felt like I had a pretty clean time through most of the game, but the last puzzle, I think, was the only one I ended up looking up part of the solution to because I got like 90% of the way there, and it was like, based on like the context of the puzzle, it was so clear that I was on the right path but missing one piece, and I was like, I don't know what they want from me. But most up to that point, I felt like I sort of was able to map out and execute on first or second try. So I guess it just speaks to the challenge of someone designing one of these games. Like, how do you account for all the different brains out there and all the different like mental states and stress loads that they're experiencing and attention levels and all that stuff?
Yeah, I would love to talk to someone who designs puzzle games someday to just be like, is this as much of a nightmare as I think it's a nightmare to try and,
Yeah.
imagine all of your players and just hope that you catch as many as possible without making it feel too easy all the time.
Yeah.
Um, I do think, especially the first half of Ghost Trick, I could kind of see what they wanted from me at all times. And it was just a matter of like, what's the order that I need to do things in to get this thing to work the way that I want? And then there's a couple, especially when we involved multiple locations where my brain was just swimming in those. Uh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And Sissel, thankfully, sometimes is like, he's not talking to you as the character, but he's thinking aloud a lot. And so he'll kind of like, as he's working out his own thoughts, drop hints or suggestions, or he'll say like, it's a shame I can't go to the other side of the room. That seems like that would be helpful. And it'll kind of nudge you towards a direction, which is nice because it gives you like a thing to focus on. But I do almost wish that this game had a more formal hint system, like a way partway through the chain to tap a button to be like, what's highlight the next thing I should interact with to put me back on track or something like that.
Yeah, I would have probably made use of a hint system for sure. I did appreciate Sissel's hints. That's a good call out for sure. And it's not like it's not like the modern, it's not the God of War where he's like, I should go touch that thing, do this exact thing, while you're like, hey, I'm still trying to figure this out. Sissel's got like vague hints like, I wonder what's up with that hat or something like that.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I wonder what is up with that hat. It's up to you to figure out what's up with that hat, but Sissel's just going to like nudge you in the right direction a little bit. So that is super helpful.
Yeah, totally.
So that's what you're doing. You're always presented with a scene full of stuff. Somebody has usually died and you need to prevent the death. Sometimes you're going into a location and it's like, I need to go here and like watch somebody or like try to read a blackboard or something like that. Most of the time you're given some sort of situation that you need to undo. You need to undo somebody's death. And that's how you move through the different chapters of the game. And as you go, the mystery gets unfolded. And again, I thought the mystery was really fun to go along the ride for. And one of the other things that made this game really fun to go on the ride for is I was always excited to see, again, like what's the next step in the mystery? What's the next little bit of info they're going to dole out to me about the greater storyline? But also like, what weirdo fucking characters am I going to meet in this new place? And that's one of this game's biggest strengths to me is character, like specifically the mystery is fun. The characters are fun. I don't think that they're like the deepest characters. I'm not going to put them on like my favorite fictional characters of all time lists, but I love being in the room with the characters in Ghost Trick. And there's two things that I think give them that character, that charm. And that's where a lot of the charm of the game comes from. Their dialogue writing is generally fun, even if I think they talk a little bit too much about like reminding me, the player, of like what's at stake. They'll like constantly repeat like, we need to go and stop this, otherwise this happens. I'm like, yeah, it's the same as it was last chapter. I got you. But the writing is generally fun. The star is the animations for the characters. And this is like, I come on the show sometimes and I talk about animations. I'm like, it's nice animation work. Like it's really pleasing to watch, but I don't think animations are as load bearing in most games as they are in Ghost Trick. They're so full of character. And if you're playing this on the DS, like you're on the little tiny DS screen with these little character, like pixel art characters walking around. And like, you can tell they really worked on these animations to make them look smooth and really full of personality and expressive. This is, it's incredible animation work. I love it.
Yeah, they first off, they feel like almost rotoscoped or something. Like
Yeah,
they,
I looked this up. Like, I was like, are they? Because they look so smooth and realistic.
yeah.
They're not. They're hand-drawn animations.
Oh,
They just spent a lot of time on it. It's kind of crazy.
yeah, and like characters' personalities are like defined by their animations.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of characters that will literally, for lack of a better word, they will animate their way into a scene. They'll
Yes.
come in and they'll be dancing and kicking or something. Or anytime someone has a big reaction to something, they have this huge, larger than life, full body, like almost cartoony reaction to it.
Hmm.
There's so many situations where you just want to like GIF it and make it your profile picture. Like you're like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna switch up, my MySpace icon for one of these characters.
Get a gif of Detective Cabanella walking into a room, and he walks in and he's got like this. So he's doing like an Elvis thing. Like he's
Mhm.
doing the hip shaking and like the snapping to different positions and stuff. But like it really reminded me of Jim Carrey, like in The Mask and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Like that type of like extreme physical movement where you're like, this guy's funny. He's not even talking, but I like this guy. He's funny. And so Cabanella's got that. The assassin in the first scene, the way he sneaks around is super funny. You mentioned like some characters get a lot of their personality from this. Lynn, like she talks a lot. You get her personality from her dialogue, but the way she's just like a really bouncy, upbeat character in her animations too. Not just in what she talks about. And probably my favorite is there's a cop in like the dispatch room or like the prison guard, security room or something like that,
Mhm.
who whenever something happens that surprises him, he falls back in his chair and like shoots his arms and legs straight out and like spins around in his chair. And it's just it's so charming and fun. I never got to I like I the cop is not an important character in the story, but I wanted him to be in scenes because I wanted to see this animation.
Which is funny because there's two cops in that room and the other one is definitely vying for your attention, but
Yeah.
it's the spinning chair cop that gets you. I 100% agree with that. And even when they're not like having big reactions to things, the animations just do a lot to tell you about the character. Like there's a character that you encounter kind of midway through the game that, for reasons that will hide themselves behind the spoiler wall, he's very stressed out. And the way
Yeah.
that he's like scratching at his neck and like anxiously
Mhm.
like can't sit still in his chair, like he's just moving his whole body in the way that you do when you're too nervous to sit still,
Yeah.
it tells you so much about what he's going through. Or there's another woman who you meet relatively early in the game who's in an apartment. She's a writer. She's typing on a typewriter, but she's got this almost Cruella de Vil energy
Yeah.
going on about her, and she's holding this
Mhm.
big wine glass, and she won't set the wine glass down, so she's doing all her typing on the typewriter with one hand while she's sipping this wine glass. And
Mhm.
it's just so playful.
Yeah. It is super playful, and again, like I often compliment animations for being smooth and pleasing and stuff like that, but I don't think they carry the charm of an entire game very often. And it's like in this game, it's like a little bit of the writing. The music is definitely cool. We'll talk about that
Yeah.
in a second, but the animation work is really like it feels weird to say it's the star of the game, but I kind of feel like it is. Like
Yeah.
it takes it from being a kind of fun puzzle game with a fun story to like this. I'll never forget some of these animations. Like it's on that level.
Yeah. It gives the entire experience a look and an energy that is like wholly unique to Ghost Trick. I can't think of another game
Mm,
that quite feels the same way.
right. And again, this is, I think it's important for these characters to have this on the DS screen, like as it was
Mhm.
originally released. I don't, if you haven't held a DS in a while, that screen is small and it
Yeah.
is low resolution. It is not a great screen, but they accomplish so much with these animations that like anytime you meet a new character, they've got something special in the animation department waiting for you. And it really does a lot. So the highest compliments for this game. And then mention just their music, super fun soundtrack.
Mhm.
It's, how do I describe this? I would say that it's a catchy soundtrack above other, like goals that a video game soundtrack might have, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of bops. There's a lot of stuff that gets stuck in my head in the game, and it's very fun to listen to. It's not like a soundtrack that like carries emotion of scenes very well, or I
Yeah.
don't even think that's like what they're trying to do. It's like Lynn has a really upbeat theme whenever she's the center of attention. And that song is really catchy and really fun. It doesn't really matter what's going on in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
You're listening to Lynn's theme, and Lynn's theme is fun. So it gives like this fun tone to the whole game, basically. Even though people are dying all the time, like like including like Lynn dies many times throughout the game, and you go fix it and stuff like that. There's always someone dying in some terrible way, but it's all within like the tone of Ghost Trick. It's always fun. It's always like comedy kind of. So
Yes.
soundtrack does a lot for that, I think.
Yeah, it goes back to what we were saying at the top, where it's a playful game, and the music is being very playful with you. It's almost never somber or quiet or even chill. Like it's almost always bumping. It's like a whole playlist of toe tappers for a mystery game, which is surprising, and it keeps the energy up. It keeps you wanting a little bit more, and it just it lets you remind yourself that they're having a good time.
Yeah, you do have some like kind of classic like noir detective style sounding songs, but they always got like a little bit more of a groove to them than, if you're watching like a real noir film or something like that. Kind of the same atmosphere, but within the kind of fun tone that Ghost Trick has again.
Yeah.
And like, like I said, someone might get hit by a car and die, but it's in Ghost Trick. So it's like, it's going to be fine. You're going to go in there and like, fix it and stuff like that. So we're all having fun. The music's going to be fun as we're going. The game's super colorful too. Like every scene is packed with color. Characters are really colorful. Again, Lynn with her like bright red, like tall hair. Yeah. Tall. Other characters that you meet, Cabanella with his like big, white trench coat and stuff like that. It's all, I don't know. There's a lot went into like these artistic parts of the game too. And they match, like everything they're doing is fitting really well with like this charming kind of whimsical tone they're given to you. Even though people are dying all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. The characters are when you're looking at them on the DS, I promise this makes sense, but they're high res by DS standards. Like there's a lot of detail to the actual characters in the game, but then they all also have these portraits that are very vibrant, very colorful, kind of not simply drawn, but simple lines, character design akin to something like a Rhythm Heaven or a WarioWare or something like that, where characters don't have a lot of design complexity, but they're just charming. They're just pleasant to look at, and they're all fun and having a good time.
It's a real good like cast of weirdos that you meet. And Sissel too. Sissel's a total weirdo. Sissel's design is arguably one of the weirder ones. He's got like this. He's got this bright red coat suit coat that he was wearing. He's got like I'm trying to remember I think he's got like blonde like Johnny Bravo hair, like straight up
it's like up
out to a point.
It's like a pointy straight up pompadour or something.
Yeah.
It's hair that can only exist in anime.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of stuff like that. A lot of characters have hair that can only exist in fiction, we'll say, at the very least. So yeah, it's just I think it all like meshes together really well into that tone. The art, the music, the character animations, their portraits, the story is like there's a mystery that you want to find out what's going on, but it's always like pretty fun along the way. Like it's compelling, but it's fun. And then what you're doing as the ghost, like with the gameplay, it's goofy to create these Rube Goldberg machines and then like watch them play out in the way that you hope they all play out. So like at the end of the day, we both mentioned like very early in the episode, it's a very charming game and it's coming from all angles. And I think that like, even if I've got my hangups about some of the puzzles, even if it's just like a puzzle that I couldn't figure out, without help, Or even if like I said, I don't love the way the story ends. I'll talk about that in the spoiler section. It's just a game that I'll look back on and be like, that was a really pleasant, like fun game to play. I'm really glad that someone made this. And I'm interested in playing the Ace Attorney games now, because I know that like they're not super serious games, even though you're dealing with serious subject matter sometimes, I guess. You're in a courtroom, so crimes have been committed allegedly. I don't know. But I'm interested in checking out the Ace Attorney games because of probably that tone first and foremost here, and like writing and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're maybe 15% more grounded than Ghost Trick, but especially the courtroom scenes in Phoenix Wright have all that same intensity. You know, that like screen flashes to a character having a big animated reaction.
Yeah.
You know, people like sweating because they're so nervous in a way that happens with their entire body, stuff like that. So yeah, you'll get something out of those games for sure. And yeah, it's just, you know, obviously this is a little less true now that there is a remaster to make this thankfully accessible to more people, but it's a really easy game to point back to on the DS's library as here's this game. It was never part of a series. It's just this one-off thing that is done by a tremendously talented team doing incredible, very unique work, and it's having fun with it the whole time. It's like a perfect candidate for like a hidden gem, go check it out type of game in the library.
Yeah. I'm glad that Capcom, they evidently heard somewhere that, you know, or kept tabs somehow that there were enough people that wanted this to be brought forward. I do think that it's a good example of like kind of the way that handheld games used to be designed. Like Switch games are not designed like this anymore, even though the Switch is a handheld. But like this is a good game to play for, you know, 30 minutes at a time, or even shorter if you get halfway through one of these levels. Like handheld games a lot of times were built in this kind of like play it on the subway on the way to work type of rhythm, and this game really fits that. And it's a good game. Like I started getting allergy shots, and so I've been going to the allergist and getting shots, and I got to sit in the waiting room for a half hour after my shot. And Ghost Trick was a perfect game for that situation, because I can get at least halfway through a level to one of those checkpoints. I'll watch a story, I'll do a bit of a puzzle, and then it'll be time to go home. And I appreciate games that are designed in that like very specific type of pace. And I think we've lost that with the Switch, because the Switch is not just a handheld, even though that's how I play it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because we could have a whole other podcast talking about that, but that is something that I'm more in the loss of, because I'm almost primarily a handheld player. Like that is my preferred modality when I get to choose. And you're right that sort of short checkpointed design, like even if it's not a short game overall, if it has logical breakpoints that the game's almost giving you permission to set it down and go do something else for a while and come back later, it is really refreshing, and it's something that I wish we saw more of. I guess with the remaster, probably means that this is a pretty ideal candidate to play on the Steam Deck for people that have it. This would make a great Steam Deck experience.
Yeah. It's not to say that, like, you know, I mean, there are a lot of games that are like, you know, they autosave all the time. So you can literally turn the thing off anytime you want and you'll pick it right back up. But it's nice to have the game be like, you are at a break in the story. Like, this is a great time to turn the console off and, you know, get off the train or play something else or go make dinner or walk the dog or something. Like, to have those breaks, maybe I appreciate it more because I'm playing so many games all the time for the show, but I really do appreciate the game saying like, we're at a nice stopping point. And I'm like, you know what? We are at a nice stopping point.
Yeah,
it's time to do something else. And, you know, playing 1 or 2 chapters per play session feels pretty ideal for Ghost Trick. So it's like half hour to an hour of game, basically.
Yeah, totally. And they all have their own little mini rising action and little crescendo and little payoff. So
yeah,
I guess,
and then they always got that thing that's going to bring you back for the next chapter.
Yeah, it's game design similar to episodic TV shows instead of giant feature films.
Yeah, good way to put it, for sure. So I think we've kind of summarized our thoughts a little bit, but what type of gamer would you recommend? Why did I say gamer like that? What type of person would you recommend Ghost Trick to, Steve?
Really hit the G there on the gamer. Hey, listen up, gamers. All right,
Yeah.
I'm speaking to you. That's a good question. I would say that there is something for most people to enjoy. Certainly anybody who's a puzzle head or enjoys a good playful story. If you are like a James Bond fan for the campiness rather than the gadgets and gizmos, you probably really like this. And like you said, it's a great game for someone who wants like a rich, deep experience, but maybe doesn't have as much time or wants to split it up. So like me, this was a perfect game to play as the dad of a very rambunctious toddler, because I could, play a scene, do my thing, and then go figure out what he's climbing into and pull him down off the kitchen counter, and then do one more after he goes to bed for the night. So, definitely any of those folks.
And I do think, like we talked about it before, but I do think that there are a lot more people who've played Ace Attorney than have played Ghost Trick. Like, do you think that this is a clear, like, if you like Ace Attorney, then Ghost Trick's probably up your alley?
Yeah, I think there's got to be like an 80-90% overlap for those people. If you're coming from Ace Attorney, Ghost Trick is a little less story dense, and it's got a little more mechanical density to compensate for that. But if you like the energy of Ace Attorney games, or even like the Yakuza games that can take themselves seriously but have fun while doing it, this will be for you.
Yeah, like there are, like, make no mistake, there are like, this is a very high stakes story. It's just goofy. And so I think Yakuza is a great example of like high stakes, but you're going to have fun the whole time along the way. Yeah. Yeah. From my perspective, I guess, since I don't have that Ace Attorney experience, I think that fans of adventure games, especially like narrative driven ones, because again, the story is what really kept me going. If this was just a sequence of these puzzles, I probably would have like kept going with it, but I don't think I would have been chomping at the bit to play it again to get to the next level. I was very interested in the story. So if that sounds cool to you, and then if you got a DS sitting around and you're like looking for a game to play on it, I've heard that the remaster has some quality of life that like people prefer, but I think this is an ideal DS game. Like if you're like, I want to start carrying my DS around and play it, if you ride a bus or something like that, I think this is a great game to play on the DS. Or if you just want to like, sit on the couch and pull out the DS for the first time in a while, Ghost Trick is a good one for that. Like the way you interact with the touchscreen is all like, I'm not the world's biggest touchscreen lover, even in DS games, but this one makes perfect sense. Everything that you're supposed to do is very intuitive, uses the touchscreen in a way that feels like this is how this game should be played. I'm sure it's good with a mouse and stuff like that, or with a controller, but like with the stylus, that feels like how you should play this. So if you're looking for a reason to pull out the old DS, Ghost Trick is a good reason, I think.
Yeah. It's funny, the remaster, if you had never played the DS version, or if you came across Ghost Trick and never knew it was on the DS, the remaster does a great job of switching things around and like remaneuvering the structure of the screens and stuff, where it doesn't just feel like you're playing a dual screen game on your TV. It all does feel like a single screen experience. But having played that and then gone back to the DS, I will show my bias a little bit that I like the DS energy of it all. So yeah, DS fans, tune in.
Yeah, DS fans know what you mean when you say DS energy. We know. There's there's people are doing a little bit of a weirdness with DS games, and it's very cool to hop back into that if you haven't been there in a while, or if it's your first time. So, good recommendations for both of us. Like I said, I have my hangups with some parts of the game, but like doesn't really diminish this. I think this is really good. It's just a puzzle game is always going to filter me out at some point. And so I can't hold it against every single puzzle game I play. Otherwise, I'm the guy that's saying puzzle games are bad, and I'm not that guy. So yeah. Yeah. So before we get into spoilers, as always, we've got our housekeeping. So we always start with the guest. And as I said at the top of the show, Steve is one of the hosts of Indie Quest podcast, Polykill podcast, and also streams on Twitch. So, and you have your YouTube channel too. A lot of stuff. So, Steve, please tell the people about your work.
Yeah, definitely. So probably the one that would make the most sense for folks here would be Indie Quest as a good starting point, because it's a indie game discussion. It's myself and two co-hosts, and every episode we bring one new indie game on, talk through kind of like an abridged version of what you do here. Rather than take 2 hours, we take about 20 minutes to get through it, but in much less robust detail. And then we place it onto the quest log. So we're basically building a giant list of recommendations of indie games that you should check out. If folks want a really great introductory episode to go check out, well, our boy here was a guest over there. So go check out, I forget the episode number, but if you look for Dave Jackson in the episode title, you'll be able to find what one you were on, which was very fun. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. And Definitely. I got to wax poetic about one of my favorite games of all time and force it onto the big quest log.
We know, because I'm a coy boy who loves avoiding spoilers and teasing, I won't say what that game is. People that have listened to this show probably know.
Yeah.
But I will say that game is on my 2026 to-do list.
Hell yeah.
You got me pumped up about it. So yeah, come check out Indie Quest. I think folks will like that. Polykill is another show I'm on. That's a backlog focused show, which I guess also makes sense for folks around here.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the title.
Yeah. Where myself and my co-host Trav, he and I talk about just the games we're playing, the games that we're beating. And that's a very community focused show. We solicit the games that everyone in the community is playing. We talk through what they're finishing, and just kind of celebrate, bi-weekly, everybody's wins, what they've been playing and what they've been working on. So either of those are podcasts you can find me on. If you want to come to the stream, that's where I play a mix of stuff. It's a lot of retro and a lot of older, jankier, weirder games, but some indies and some more modern stuff show up there too.
A lot of stuff on the stream where I'll open Twitch and I'll see you're streaming and I'm like, what the hell is Steve playing? I've never heard of that. And it's always fun to pop in and be like, okay, so that's what this is.
Yeah, we're playing some CDI today. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good to know. Yeah. So that's a great time. Folks can come check out that. That's Blinkoom on Twitch. And then I have a YouTube channel very specifically at this point, pretty much about trophy hunting, which is like a sub addiction that I have. So if folks are achievement or trophy hunters, it's Blinkoom on YouTube as well.
There we go. A lot of good stuff. And I think obviously like streams and YouTube channel, they're going to appeal to a lot of people, especially I know there's trophy hunters in the Tales from the Backlog community. So if you're looking for a YouTube channel, go check that out. And then, if you want to join in tackling games from the backlog, we have our own backlog resolutions. And then Polykill is a podcast built around that. And then Indie Quest for a bunch of different indie games. Like per episode, you all always bring different games to the show. So it's a nice little like grab bag of like, here's 3 indie games instead of just 1 per episode.
Yeah, and not all of them are modern. Often they are, but one episode might have one from 2026 and then one from 2018 and one from 2022. So we're just trying to fill out the list to be as good as possible. We're up to, at this point, over 250 games that we can confidently recommend. So it's always growing.
Love it. So I will put links in the show notes to everything that Steve is doing so you can easily check those out. Maybe as the music in the spoiler break is playing, go find some stuff to queue up. I think you'll enjoy it over there. And I did my plugs at the top of the episode. The only thing I didn't mention is the community Discord, which is public. Hop on in, join us, join the conversation. If you want to make a backlog list, join our backlog resolutions challenge. And otherwise, join the community. I think we're a good group of folks, and we'd love to have you. If that sounds like a place you want to be, hop on in. There is an invite link down in the show notes. So with that being said, we're going to take a break. And then when we come back, it's going to be full spoiler time for Ghost Trick Phantom Detective. All right, before we get to full spoiler time for Ghost Trick Phantom Detective, I would like to say thank you, as always, to the patrons. A big thank you goes out to Chris Nelson, Zulgeek, Chris Copleen, Eric Guess, Rick Firestone, Nick Fakori, Soccer, Cupcake, Kyle, Christian S., Matt aka Stormageddon, JD, Doug Leaf, Jason Emery, Brian Skirsha, Jenny E., Marcus O'Neill, Stefan, Drellish, Rigamort, Silcanet, Levi, John E., Aliasi, Joseph Hooper, Aaron, Squill, Alan Kress, Doug T., Retro Overdrive, One of Many Tots, Magic Crow, Offshore Meteor, Curly Bright, Ian L., Steve Yeager, Trash Dog Actual, Matthew Maloney, Delaney and Jack McBride, Ethan Young, Michael Lassen, and many more. If you would like to join this esteemed group of people, you can do so by heading to patreon.com/realdavejackson to kick me a few bucks a month and help support the work that I'm doing here on the show. It's much appreciated, and you get some treats in return, and including a new poll for a game to cover on the show, which if you're listening on the day that this episode comes out, that poll is ongoing. So if you'd like to influence what games end up on the show, Patreon is the place to do that. So with all of that being said, let's get back to full spoiler time for Ghost Trick Phantom Detective. All right, we're back. It's full spoiler time for Ghost Trick Phantom Detective, and a couple of disclaimers that I usually do. The first one, we're not going to go in a linear walk through the game or a linear walk through the story. The story is kind of all over the place with when you get what information. So if you don't want to be spoiled on any of it, we're just going to say blanket full spoiler warning starts now. And the other thing is, we're not going to talk about every level. We're not going to talk about every plot point. We're going to talk about what's interesting to us and kind of start with some of our favorite puzzles, our favorite levels, stuff like that. So, Steve, I'll throw to you first. It doesn't have to be in any sort of order, but like when I ask you, like, what's a fun Ghost Trick puzzle? What's the first one that pops to your head?
So like some of my favorite levels, one of them that I probably really enjoyed was the jail, the prison area, because one, you get to meet a couple of very goofy characters. That's where you meet the security guards that we mentioned in the first half. And you also get to meet these inmates that one is like this very over the top punk rocker kid. The other is, I don't even know how to describe the other guy. He's like chef coded, but he also like does the worm to move around.
Yeah, he feels like he came out of like a newspaper comic and they just like stuck him in the game and animated him like something, a different art style entirely almost.
Yeah, he's very goofy. But they have like a fun, weird, they have like their own Rube Goldberg machine that they use to communicate with one another to assist in their prison break. And so you're hopping from cell to cell and like traveling on wadded up bits of toilet paper that they flush from one cell to another and then catch with a fishing rod.
Yeah.
In order to successfully like get down to the other spot. And it's just it's a good example of what we were talking about in gameplay, where each cell is kind of its own mini puzzle, and then figuring out how to get around them is also a mini puzzle. And it's just a fun one to navigate and move around in. Plus it does something that the game actually does this a lot really well, where they will show you an environment that you're not going to actually be in yet. They'll like tease you with something fun. You'll be able to like navigate down and just look into a room. And Sissel will say like, oh, I don't know what the heck this electric chair is all about. And probably not what I need right now. And then you'll go away. And then 3 hours later, you'll be back puzzling in that room. But now you kind of recognize it. So yeah.
And the cool part about that, like that revisit, because there's a second jail level when you're trying to help Jowd escape. But you have to like go through the prison cell stuff, and like all those things you remember from the earlier prison level, they mostly still work. So it's like, I need to get down in the room where they're about to execute Jowd. How do I get close to that room? Well, I remember that weird guy who's digging the tunnel with a spoon, and I know how to get him to go down in the tunnel. So like, let's do that again and stuff like that. So they bring that stuff back really well. They really don't waste space that they show you. Like if they show you a room that's got stuff in it, it will be important at some point. Even if it's just like you're on the top floor of a 2-story thing and you can kind of peek into the lower floor, you'll go down there at some point. And then
Yes.
what you remember about the top floor might be helpful. So I like that. That level's so goofy in the jail. Like the first thing that popped into my mind, two things: how the punk rock guy has an entire band kit in his jail cell and he's just
Yeah.
just playing the electric guitar really loud in the jail. And then the big guy who's doing the escape always, so he takes his spoon with him and he's digging out this tunnel with a spoon. And then when he goes back in the cell, he always takes a big mouthful and like cleans the spoon, like takes a big lick of the spoon before he puts it in his bucket at the end. And that always made me laugh. So,
Oh, that is, that is really good. You say that the game doesn't waste space, which is true. They also kind of don't waste characters. Like
no.
basically every character you come across in the game is plot critical in some way, maybe outside of those two security guards. Like other than that,
Yeah.
You're never using like a bystander to navigate from one place to another.
Right.
You're just only meeting people that it turns out their lives are all intertwined together permanently.
Yeah. The main cast is pretty small, but that group of side characters, even if it's just like a cop that you're going to use to move from one side of the junkyard to the other, like that's the only cop there. Like there's not like 15 police officers there. There's one. And so he's critical for this puzzle. And like you said, a lot of them are like playing a part in the story. I would say like the main cast that like talks a lot in the game is 10 to 15 characters, and 10 to 15 hour game, you get a lot with most of them. So it's a good observation. They don't introduce someone just to have them like be a joke once and then you never see them again. Like there's not a whole lot of that. They're all doing their part.
Yeah.
I forgot the like the story reason was really goofy for those prisoners too. Like there was the punk rocker who, like, this part of the mystery is like the punk rocker's in jail because he was doing a concert and started singing government secrets that like he shouldn't have known. That's super goofy. The chef guy like broke into the prime minister's office or something like all by himself, and like you look at him, you're like, he's not a sneaky guy, you know. So like that's part of the fun mystery is like there's something supernatural going on in the story, and it like starts with you being a ghost, but also there's this weird mystery. Why was this punk rock guy singing government secrets that he claims to have not known before the concert, you know?
Yeah. And you could kind of connect the pieces early. I mean, you think like, here I am, I'm a little ghost spirit that's moving around and manipulating stuff. Presumably maybe there's others that can do something similar or alternative ways to do that. But it's still a fun reveal when you actually get to that point of the story and see what went on.
So one of my other like standout levels is the apartment. It's like the second location you go to with the girl, I forget her name, but the girl that lives with Lynn and Missile, the dog, the Pomeranian.
He's so good. I think, is it Camilla?
Camilla, yeah, that's her name. Yeah. I should have written it down. I always run into this. I'm like, yeah, I'll remember. It's in the notes. Camilla is yeah, there it is. It's just in the next paragraph in the notes from eye level. Anyway, Camilla's apartment with Missile. So they send a hitman over to Camilla's apartment, and that's where you have like this 2-room setup, and kind of like we were talking about. This whole first level is in the left apartment, Camilla's apartment. And then the right side is that Cruella DeVille writer and her daughter that's in there. And that's like this. So the left side's like level 2 and the other side is like level 16. It's like way later in the game, but you use that apartment because they don't waste stuff that they made. It's all very efficient in that way. But like, I liked the thing of like, Camilla's got this great animation of sitting there eating donuts out of the this big bowl of donuts, manipulate the donuts to get her to go over, and like you're trying to get her to like not answer the phone or something, and like knock the phone into the fish tank with this elaborate group of things. You're trying to get Missile to bark and piss off the lady next door to like, there's a lot going on. It's just really fun. Like further introduction to like the type of humor that the game has, I think, like first and foremost, like it's goofy. Like the lady's like, I'm going to break down the wall if that dog doesn't shut up. And then your goal in the game is to get the dog to bark to piss her off. And then eventually Missile gets shot, which is, you don't like to see that, but that starts your game long partnership with Missile, which is pretty fun. Like Missile's like, I didn't know you'd have a sidekick or something. We didn't mention it earlier, but you kind of do. Like the spirit of this dog is with you for a lot of the game too.
Yes. And he's such a great character for a dog. He's such a great character. They do a good job of making you feel like you are hearing the thoughts of a dog. Like every sentence has an exclamation point. He's so excited about everything he sees.
Yep.
Obsessed with his owners, with Camilla wanting to keep her safe. Missile is an all-timer. That level is an all-timer too, honestly, because they kind of do everything that the game is going to do well all in that one stage. Like that's the level I'm thinking of when I imagine them splitting the puzzles into like two sections, basically, because it's about that left side and then finding a way to use the cart to get to the right side. They tease that other level, like you said. They also let you drop this like literal Chekhov's gun from the ceiling into the Christmas tree. And you look at it and you're like, what the heck was that? And it just falls and lands there. And then you never use it for the puzzle. And you're like, I mean, okay. And then halfway through the game, it comes back up and is story relevant again. So yeah, all that section is really fun.
Yep. That one's fun. We might as well talk about it now. We're on the subject of Missile. Eventually Missile gets ghost trick powers too, because of his proximity to that meteor that's giving people the ghost powers. He eventually gets close to it. He dies in the park and his body is like lying next to this meteor fragment.
He happens to get run over by a Vespa or something directly above the like meteorite crash site memorial. And so he lucks into some powers.
Right. But that gives us like the only real escalation in gameplay that this game has. It introduces you to the ghost trick powers, and that doesn't change for the whole game. They like exhaust everything they could do with like just ghost tricks, the way that Sissel can do it. And then in the last like handful of levels, they introduce Missile and his ghost powers, which is that he can swap two objects that are of the same shape. And some of those puzzles really worked for me and some of them really didn't, because you not only do you have to manipulate objects around like position, but it's like this object is in this shape when it's hanging on a hook, but if I knock it off the hook, it's not in that same shape anymore and could become more or less useful for the puzzle depending on that.
Yeah, I don't even know if we have mentioned that to this point, but the whole game is 2D side-on.
Yeah.
And so the angle you're viewing something at usually doesn't matter until Missile, where, you imagine like a football sideways is football shaped, but if you rotate a football 90 degrees and look at it, it kind of looks like a obloid sphere in a way. You would never know that it's a football. And a lot of the puzzles with Missile involve trying to find ways to turn objects in the scene, to manipulate them or transform them in some way that will make them into a shape that will be useful, which is a cool way to like a cool little twist on the perspective the game has that they really haven't talked about too much up to that point or brought much attention to. It is used for some good comedy at some points, like like side on at one point you're looking at the chief of police, I think it is, and you're seeing like him sitting in his chair at his desk, but because you're side on you can see that he's barefoot, and the entire time he's talking he's like wriggling his toes and like massaging his foot with his other foot in this weird goofy way. So they're playful with that part of it too. But yeah, I liked that little mechanical twist that they add with Missile and the swapping. I actually wish they'd used it a little bit more, because it shows up, you use it once or maybe twice in like a relatively guided way. They're like, we need to do literally this thing, swap it with
Mm.
this thing. And then you aren't with Missile for a while, and then it comes back at the tail end of the game, and you use it for the last couple puzzles, especially the last puzzle in the game.
Yeah.
But I would have liked it if they maybe introduced it a little bit sooner, because I was having fun with it.
Yeah. It really feels like they exhausted the Sissel's ghost trick stuff, or like maybe a couple levels past that, and then they bring in Missile stuff. I agree. I could have used a couple more Missile levels, because usually Missile and Sissel are both there, and you can swap between them and use both of their ghost trick abilities in the most complex ones. The comedy of it you mentioned reminded me of the scene where the bad Sissel, as far as we know to that point, shoots Cabanela, and you have to swap the bullet with a beanie hat that's in the same shape, and so he just gets shot in the face with a beanie, and like, it's still going like several hundred miles an hour. It like doesn't feel good. Like he still gets knocked back in the chair, but like he's fine. He's not dead anymore. So like that was funny, and a lot of the Missile puzzles like get into stuff like that. Along those lines, like the puzzle that gave me the most trouble in the game, there's two of them, I guess. The chicken restaurant puzzle, where you have to like go out and you're doing like the section with the guy who's driving the van and crashes into the restaurant.
Yeah.
Really struggled with the chicken restaurant. And then the submarine level was just like a couple sections in the submarine where I was like, I have no fucking idea. Like I'm looking at the screen and I'm like, I got nothing here.
Yeah, especially submarine is probably the number one that I was getting hung up on too, especially the parts where you're like climbing up with Lynn to get to like the top of the hatch, because they also introduce they don't introduce, but they use Missile rather than his swapping power being kind of like the ultimate conclusion to a puzzle, which it has been. It starts just being used mechanically to swap pipes.
Mm-hmm.
And something about that, even though it's like a really straightforward puzzle, like it's not any more complex than what you'd find in like the second or third dungeon of any given Zelda game. For some reason, my brain was just not grokking what I was supposed to do with this steam. So I'm swapping stuff and the water level is rising. And like 3 times I got poor Lynn drowned because I just couldn't work out what I needed to do.
Poor Lynn. I didn't take account. Like I maybe I should have like kept a tally. She has to die at least like 8 times throughout this game. Like,
yeah.
Basically every time you
her.
see her.
Yeah.
Yeah. At a certain point. Cause you can revive. It's one of like the story things is like, you can revive people, but they're going to remember that they died. And so like one of the ways that this game like has opportunity to go dark in a lot of different cases, and it almost never does, or maybe never does entirely. Like this is one of those ways where like Lynn remembering all of these multiple deaths could like break a person, and she could become like some sort of tragic character. But eventually, like you said, she's like, it's already happened like 4 times. Who cares? Like, I'm cool now. Like, put me in danger again as long as you can undo it.
Yeah, you'll be able to do your ghost thing. It's going to be fine. I keep bouncing back from it. So just go for it. And Sissel stressing the entire time. Like, well, what if there isn't a fan that I can turn on,
Yeah. What if there's no tennis balls?
Yeah. I don't know what to do in that case.
There was another part of the game that got me thinking about, like, are they going to really explore something deeper? And that was when you start rescuing Jowd, and Jowd has like this guilt in him that like he killed Sissel in the park. And even when he finds out like, it was the meteor that killed him, not you shooting, but he was like, I was going to pull the trigger anyway. I might as well have killed him. He has this thing where he tells Sissel like, thank you for saving my life, but like, I don't think my life is worth saving because I'm a murderer. And I was like, oh shit, is Ghost Trick gonna like, are we gonna go there? And the answer is definitively no, we're not going there. It's partly why this spoiler section is just like, hey, let's just kind of shoot the shit, because this game doesn't really it doesn't explore any of these things really. It's just a fun ride to go on. And like, you can think about it. What would it be like to experience your death multiple times and always remember the ways that you died and you were brought back to life? But this game will never go there, you know?
Yeah, they're never taking it particularly seriously. Maybe the most serious it ever gets is at one point Sissel, well, your character, is it's a confusing one to describe, but your character's talking to Lynn. I think it's like maybe the second time she dies, and he's like, I'll revive you, but I'm asking you, like, can you please help me figure out who I am? Like, I need the help of a person to figure out my identity because I don't know who I am. And Lynn says, basically, no. She's like, I would love to, but I have my own problems that I need to solve tonight, and they're also time sensitive because she's trying to free Jowd before he's executed. And Sissel does say, like, well, I'm still going to revive you because I'm not going to use your life as a bargaining chip. Like,
yeah,
like it's not an exchange in such a way where I'm going to hold it over your head. And that, like, if you're trying to be charitable, is like maybe a little bit of value of life commentary from Ghost Trick, but I think it's more Sissel being kind of the Kiryu of 2010, where he's just good guy through and through, you know? He's just honest and pure.
Yeah. More on why Sissel might be honest and pure and good later on, but we got more stuff to talk about. That kind of goes along. I was going to talk about this in the non-spoiler part, and then I forgot to loop back to it, but it's fine. So like, this is a mystery game, and kind of along the lines of what you were saying, Sissel's not investigating this. Like, you're not trying to piece together what happened, like in the way that you might in any game where you play as a detective or like someone who's the protagonist of a mystery game. You help people, and you kind of like Sissel just kind of hopes that they'll tell him what's going on. And it's a real tease for like the first half of the game, really, before like you start getting plot twist after plot twist, like real Metal Gear Solid style shit, like about halfway through this game. But until that point, you're like, okay, I saved your life. Will you please tell me something about what's going on here tonight? And they're like, nope, gotta go. And then they run out. And it's like, all right, well, this is where they're going. I'm going to follow. And, you know, you show up and someone else is dead. And it's like, man, will someone please just tell me who I was? Like, you were in the graveyard with me. And eventually you get like you get the scene where it's like, the person who killed you was Lynn. Lynn shot you in the graveyard. So it's like, Lynn, you know something. Tell me what was going on. And you go for a while and you're just like, someone please tell me something. It's kind of weird to have a mystery game where like this story does not proceed without Sissel. Sissel's the protagonist of the story, but Sissel's just waiting for people to explain stuff to him.
And they're all coming to depend on him in those situations too, right? They're like,
yeah,
they won't even know he's in the room. They'll just like speak to an empty room, like looking at the light bulbs and the fans and, and everything. And they're like the textbooks, and they're like, Sissel, you in there? If so, could you flap some pages to let me know so you can come help? But it is funny that doesn't really have much investment beyond. I guess at the beginning of the game, he is told, like, if you follow this mystery through, you'll learn more about yourself from Ray. Yeah. But a bigger part of it just feels like, well, these are the characters that he's physically adjacent to, and he can only travel through active phone calls, so he can only like get to other places that are relevant to these people's mysteries and sphere of influence. So he's just kind of rolling with it, like, well, hopefully I figure out about myself, but I don't have much other choice.
Yeah. I think that there's a certain point in the story when Sissel stops being like, he's always focused on figuring out who he is, but that stops being his primary thing. His primary thing is like, I got to help these people. I have to save Detective Jowd. I have to save Lynn. We have to get to the bottom of this mystery. And then at the end of the game, like when it all kind of comes together, it like loops back to, we're getting really close to figuring out who I am and why I was killed. So like, can we focus on that again? And it all ties together. But it is just kind of odd. I was listening to the Retrospectives podcast, friends of mine and podcast guests here, and they were talking about this, and it really got me thinking, like, it is weird that like so many of the scenes in the first half of the game end with like Sissel, okay, Lynn, I saved you. Can you please tell me something that you know? And she's like, nah, sorry. I gotta be at the chicken restaurant right now. Gotta go. So,
and sometimes they do like the tropey video game thing too, where they're like, I could tell you, but I think it'd be better if you found out for yourself.
Oh yeah, sure.
So you're like, all right, man. I mean, I'm literally gonna like ghost vaporize in 5 hours, but if you want to be the coy boy, that's okay.
Yeah. Funny. There's two types of reactions to that. There's either I could tell you, but you should find out for yourself, or I will tell you everything you ever wanted to know in one big monologue before I do my evil deed, or something like that.
So
this game
true.
goes for the former. Yeah. Let's see. Trying to think if there's any other levels that I don't want to like go without just like saying they were. The Rube Goldberg killing machine that you do multiple times. The one that ends with Cupid's flaming arrow. So there's two parts of this. The first time you stop it from killing Lynn, because I don't remember if the arrow shoots her or if it shoots the gun that's on the wall that shoots Lynn. But you stop that.
Yeah, you stop it. Yeah, you point the Cupid the other way, so like its arrow doesn't light the fuse of the decorative wall gun that shoots her. Yeah.
Because everyone keeps their decorative wall guns loaded.
Loaded and angled down at the doorway, kind of right at heart level.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's what we do with our mounted guns by the front door. They're all pointing right at heart level, and we've got this Cupid that can shoot at it. So you do that with Lynn, and then you do it later when you travel back in time to stop Camilla from accidentally killing her mom. Because she set up this elaborate Rube Goldberg machine to light a birthday cake's candles with Cupid's flaming arrow, or to like light some like poppers or something in the room. And it like mysteriously turned around and shot her mom, or shot the gun that shot her mom. So you do that puzzle twice, basically. And I just think it's really fun to have, like, a lot of the puzzles are, you make a Rube Goldberg machine out of unrelated things in the environment. This one is an actual Rube Goldberg machine that you have to stop from killing people.
Yeah, it's flipping the script a little bit. It's also just one of the best. It's like the most lost that the game ever gets, where you, at the one of the chapter stingers at the end is you appear in a room, and it's a completely different room from where the Rube Goldberg machine was. But there is an identical Rube Goldberg machine created in this other room, in this like laboratory. And you're like, why are they mass producing these murder machines? What is going on?
Like they sell a kit at the store.
This is a special cellophane over the gun that says, only open this if you want to make a special kind of Rube Goldberg.
Exactly. Yeah. If you have a special surprise for somebody. Yeah. This game's goofy as hell. Love it. Let's talk about some of those big mysteries. In thinking about the way the story is delivered, it reminds me of a less complicated, but still complicated, like 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim type story. If you play that, the type of story where like when you start, you have absolutely no chance of guessing what's actually happening here. Like, and basically until the final chapter, you think you know, but you have no fucking idea what the final reveal is going to be. And it all, like, the final reveal happens and it all locks into place. And an hour and a half before that, if someone asked you, like, I had predictions about the story and they were all wrong. Because how could I have guessed where this was going? And so it's like this layering of like, there's always a deeper layer to this story. There's always something bigger going on in here. I just, first of all, I had fun on that ride.
I mean, it's fun that, so I feel like I'm turning this into a Lost Defenders podcast, but.
Oh, dude, I'm with you. Let's do it.
All right, good. People always say, and you and I have the same philosophy on stuff around enjoying the ride, but people will always be like, this or that lost twist, like it didn't reach a satisfying conclusion, or they never explained the mystery. And my thought, or my feeling personally, is I'm always like, yeah, but I had a hell of a time when they revealed that mystery. Like, I was swapping theories and stories, and even if it came, to a relatively ho-hum conclusion, like, boy, did I have fun imagining all the possibilities. Yeah. No answer could ever have been as satisfying as the questions in my head.
Yeah.
For sure. What's fun about the way that Ghost Trick does it is that they will give you satisfying conclusions, but they're just like, they're not lies, but they're like almost lies. They're pretty much red herrings. They're like, this is the answer. And then later you learn, well, technically that was the answer.
Yeah.
But only technically, in a way that is no longer useful to you at all.
Yeah. You know what my defense for a lot of those, like, they didn't explain enough in Lost complaints is, like, it's a magic island. I think a lot of those things are explained by the fact that the island is magic. Like, that explains 80% of that show. And then, obviously, the ride in Lost was worth it, no matter how it ended. And I liked the ending of season 6, for the record.
I do too.
I cried like a baby when that show ended. Mm-hmm. So Lost Defenders podcast coming to your podcatcher soon.
I'm here. All right, let's do it.
I think the biggest reveal for me is the reveal, the part where I started to be like, oh shit, what's going on here, is when they reveal that Lynn is the one who shot Sissel in the graveyard.
Yes.
And then you're like, oh, can I not trust Lynn? Like, is Lynn a bad person? And like you said, it's like, it's not a lie, but like, that's not even close to what's going on. They show you Lynn shooting, and then they're like, hey man, draw whatever conclusions you want from this. We'll get back to this later.
And you ask her about it multiple times, and she's very cagey. She's like, that doesn't seem like something I would do. That doesn't sound like me. Are you sure? And he's like, I saw the tapes. It did happen, but it turns out somehow you're both correct.
Dude, credit to the animation work. The one thing about that scene that really like gave me an extra thing to think about is Lynn hesitates before she shoots you. And then she misses the first shot. She actually shoots twice. And the first shot, she like wavers and shoots and misses. Like, so I'm like, okay, so she didn't want to do it. Because if she wanted to, she would have just fucking shot you. And then she shoots you and kills you. So that gave me a lot to chew on as we go through the rest of it. And we get in this whole story about Jowd and the man that he killed in the park. And you find out that man was Sissel, who got killed in the park. But it's like, if he shot Sissel in the park, why is my body in the graveyard or in the in the junkyard? And like I said, Metal Gear Solid, twist every chapter. At the end of every chapter, completely shakes up everything you thought was true in the last chapter, basically.
Metal Gear Solid, right down to the point that it's a story about like international governments.
Oh yeah.
Like
didn't even mention
doing
that.
Like backdoor deals to obtain what will ultimately be the equivalent of like a global superpower. Like it is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's actually shady dealings by governments in the same way Metal Gear Solid would be.
Exactly. Yeah. We're just missing the clones. And I think that's all that's missing.
Yeah.
So the reveal for like the last handful of chapters is that the Sissel that you saw in the graveyard is up and walking, or I keep saying graveyard, junkyard, is up and walking around, and he's evil. He's killing people, and he's immortal somehow. And So like the one where Cabanela gets shot, the submarine level, there's a couple levels before that. They're all built around this evil Sissel that's walking around. And you're like, well, that's me.
Yeah.
Am I evil? Was I evil? Why is he walking around? Why do I not like, why am I here and he's walking around? Um, which you could maybe infer, like, I don't know. Do you remember the first time you played? Like, were you ever like, did you ever catch on to one of these things before they revealed the truth to you?
Mm, I don't think I ever did ahead of time. No.
But it makes sense, like, once you hear it, you're like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, even like down to that where who you thought you were, Sissel that's walking around this like immortal kind of Terminator guy.
Yeah.
In hindsight, you look at Sissel's character design and it's really like borderline villain adjacent, where you're like, in hindsight, it's almost like they gave someone like a a shady hat or a goatee or something, where you're like, maybe I should have been suspicious of this guy.
The haircut. It
Yeah.
reminds me of playing like a Final Fantasy game, and you like, or a Japanese RPG in general, and you meet a guy with like a really evil looking haircut, and you're like, well, that's the villain of the game. I know that right now. Should have guessed from Sissel's haircut. So the story goes, I'm not going to go through every single point, but this is my general understanding of it. The night in the park where Jowd killed the guy, turns out he didn't kill the guy who was holding Lynn hostage. That guy is Sissel. He escaped from custody, I believe.
Yeah.
Jowd was chasing him, and right as he was about to shoot him, he got hit by a meteorite. The meteorite is magic, and that is the source of the ghost tricks, is dying while in close proximity to a fragment of this meteorite. And so that's the treasure that other government wants, is they want this thing because they want the powers, the superpowers for their country or whatever.
Yes. And it manifests differently in different people. Like they get slightly different ghost trick powers, and it seems to also like mutate over time. But that is how all the characters you come across in the story that can do ghosty hijinks in some form have died adjacent to something. Obviously Sissel died getting struck by the meteorite. You, as the player, died adjacent to Sissel's body, which has the meteorite embedded in it.
Right.
Missile dies right above the meteorite underground where a monument was constructed. So everyone has like a small piece of connection back to this meteorite. And it kind of is a logical reveal, because several times throughout the game, as you've been playing in ghost trick like phantom mode, you'll see this wavy aura emanating off of things or people, and you'll say like, oh, what's going on there? Or even Sissel will comment like, I wonder what that wave is. Anyways, I probably don't need to worry about it right now. And then later you're like, oh, hindsight, I should have paid attention to the aura. That was a big deal.
There's a lot of things in hindsight, basically, that they could have given you a hint. The game's biggest reveal is that you, the spirit, are not Sissel. You just assumed you were because you wake up in the junkyard and that's the dead body that's right next to you that you can see. So you're like, oh, well, that was me, obviously. And I love that like trick of it where they're like, just, right off the bat, they didn't lie to you, but everyone jumped to the logical conclusion, and the logical conclusion was not correct. But then like later in the game, when you see the Sissel walking around and it's like conscious and doing stuff, and you're like, well, hold on, like someone else possessing my body. Like that's the ghost power that Sissel has, is he can manipulate people into doing stuff. So he manipulated Lynn into shooting in the graveyard.
Yeah.
And a couple others. He manipulated the justice minister signing the execution order for the detective. A couple others. He's the reason that I think he's the reason that Camilla's Rube Goldberg machine went awry, I think.
Yeah. So he basically, I think he was in organized crime or something, but he was brought in despite being innocent and being interrogated by Jowd and Cabanela. and he makes a break. Like he tries to escape, and that's when he dies to the meteorite. And so he basically is salty about like the circumstances that led to his death, and he has a vendetta against everyone who was involved
Yeah.
in basically putting him into that position, which weirdly also includes child Lynn, like little kid Lynn, who was just playing in the park.
Right.
And that's why, even though it seems like a bit random, that's why over the course of 10 years, he possesses the Rube Goldberg machine to shoot right instead of left, and then also is possessing what is actually his own body, but not your body, to either frame or kill all the other people that had any hand in this one scene 10 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah. And I like it up to the point where we're basically we're saving Jowd, we're saving everyone from the submarine. And then we find out who Sissel actually is, like Sissel, the player. You're playing as, you were Sissel's cat, who was in a cat carrier that he was carrying in the junkyard. And that first shot that Lynn shot that missed hit the cat and killed you. And that's who you are. So I like that the game, it goes up until this point where you're basically making things right with everyone who's still alive. You're saving everyone. You're getting the execution for Jowd waved off and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like it up until that point. And like the Sissel, the evil one, has a kind of change of heart toward the end of it, where he's like, this vendetta was wrong, and we put an end to this. And like, I thought that was a logical conclusion to the story, up through learning like you're actually the cat. I thought that was a really fun reveal of like, it all makes sense. Like you said, side on perspective, you just couldn't see that there's a cat carrier with a dead cat in it.
Yeah.
Right there. Like, I think all that was a lot of fun. Where the story kind of lost me is when we started traveling back in time a bunch to undo a whole bunch of things. Like, in fact, like to the point of going back in time to prevent Sissel from getting hit with the meteor. That's the last level in the game. I don't know if like time travel detectives want to like think about the repercussions and all the butterfly effects of all the deaths you're undoing and stuff in this game, but that's the last level. And there was something about this being like one layer too much for me. Like, I was very satisfied, and then they're like, but wait, there's more. There's one more layer, and it's encircling everything else. Like, it's such an extra big layer with Ray at the end.
Yeah.
I thought we had already squared the circle, and then they're like, but don't you want this extra level of complexity? I'm like, kind of not, kind of don't.
I kind of agree. It almost, that part in particular felt like they couldn't think of another way to have your ghost powers explained to you at the beginning of the game. So then at the end of the game, they're like, we got to get back to that Pixar lamp and explain what was going on with him. And they circle back around and like create a failed attempt that resulted in like a second 10-year time loop. And without
it was like,
that,
it was like Ray set up this whole thing because like he asked you 10 years ago to help and you said no. So he was like, we gotta set up this extra time loop to try again. So maybe you'll help this time. And it's like, yeah. Sorry, I cut you off, but it's like, it's a little too much for me.
No, that's fine. I think without that, I actually really enjoy the hop into Sissel, the villain man, and going back in time 10 years to that scene in the park. That feels like a really fitting conclusion for the game, because this is a scene that the story's been revolving around. It's kind of a fun reveal that they've never really like mentioned how far back in time you could theoretically go to someone's moment of death. So the fact that he did die 10 years ago but is kind of immortal creates this fun sort of loophole where you do get to hop back in time to that scene. And that feels like one final leap I'm willing to take, where I'm like, okay, you're getting goofy time travel-y, but I like that. But yeah, so then the timeline split into the good and bad timeline, where you're selfish Cat Sissel rather than helpful Cat Sissel. And they knew that the only way for you to be helpful Cat Sissel would be to not be asked to be helpful. It's it is a little bit of a strange leap of logic.
And maybe just like we talked about the characterization for Missile as a dog. Maybe it's just like, if you try to tell a cat to do something, it's not going to do it. I don't know if that's the logic, but it felt, I don't want to generalize too much, but I feel like this happens in Japanese games more than others, where it's like, you get to the end of the game, you get to the end of the story, and they're like, we have an entire other layer of like supernatural shit that you didn't know about. We're going to throw on right at the end. You're going to fight an extra final boss at the end of the game that you're like, who's this guy? Like,
yes.
I feel like this happens more often. It might literally be like 5-1 or something. It's not like pervasive, but it did get me thinking about all those RPGs I played where I'm like, wait, why am I fighting God? God wasn't the villain 10 minutes ago. This feels like that to me. It feels like an unnecessary raising of scope when I was already very satisfied with that scene in the park.
Yeah, it's like if you just cut out that 15 minutes of explanation, you'd be like, okay, this makes Metal Gear Solid sense. Like I accept enough of this premise to leave satisfied.
Yeah. I think part of the purpose of that was to explain who Ray was, but I'll be honest with you, I forgot all about Ray.
He never gets mentioned after the first chapter. Like, he does not come back up. Maybe they wanted us to forget about him so they could do this,
it would be a big
rug pull at
surprise
the end. But
yeah, I think there would have been a simpler way to tutorialize ghost tricks to you. Like, you wake up as a ghost, you're like, I'm inside of a tire, and then you're like, can I move? And then you press the button to move and the tire wiggles and you're like, oh shit, I can move the tire. And there you go. You got ghost tricks. I think that it was like but wait, you need to know who Ray is. And I was like, dude, I forgot about Ray. That was 13 hours ago.
Yeah. That was 2 weeks of my real life ago. Ray is nobody to me.
Yeah.
But if that one didn't work, like you said, I did really appreciate the reveal of you being a cat, because in hindsight, the things you can and cannot interact with in the game are pretty consistent with what a cat would be capable of doing.
Oh, are they cat coded? I didn't even think of that.
I mean, some of them are certainly like knocking balls off of stuff, but also like the level of like physical strength that you're able to assert, even kind of abstractly, feels roughly consistent with how strong a cat would be if, I guess, liquefied into spirit form. So I liked that a lot, but I ended up having a really interesting replay as a result of that. So,
oh yeah, true.
Like I said, I forgot a lot of the details of this game in the last 15 years. I remembered the twist of you being an animal, but I had forgotten that you were an unnamed cat. Okay. So I got back into the game and I was like, as soon as I met Missile, I was like, oh yeah, you were the dog. Sissel, Missile. Okay. That's so obvious. How did I not see it the first time? And so I played the majority of this game waiting for them to reveal that I was Missile the whole time. And I kept being like, wow, I don't remember how they explain like the conversations we have back and forth with each other this whole time. Yeah. Like this is really abstract. And then when it turned out I was a cat the whole time, I was like, oh, I was playing like a fan fiction version of this game that does not exist.
That's super funny. I love that. It would be fun. I'm sure that this is not true, but it would be fun to like go through the game and just be like, I am knocking a lot of stuff off of shelves. Like I'm just doing cat stuff all the time. But you're right. Like that explains the size and weight, I guess, of the stuff that you interact with. It also explains like we said earlier, like you, Sissel, the spirit, are just like, you're cool, you're nice, you want to help. And that's very pet coded as well. Even if I think Missile needs to be a dog to be that character. But like, if you were another dog, it would make even more sense. You know, nobody wants to please people more than their pet. Right. So
all the little details too that are pet coded or like small animal coded, they work equally well as a cat or the assumption of a dog. So stuff like the fact that he can't read makes sense, or there's things in the world that he does know, and then there's other things, usually concepts that he doesn't know. So he knows what a table and a donut and a tree is, but he'll be like, I don't know what a prime minister is. I've never.
Oh yeah.
They seem important from context, but I don't know who that is. And so that does a lot to explain why he had convenient amnesia whenever he needed to in the story. It actually does track. But for my fan theory, I was like, well, that works for a dog just fine. So
absolutely. You know, when we were going through and you'd get to one of those where he sees an electric chair and he's like, I don't know what this is. Like, it happens a lot. And I started to be like, all right, man, I get it. You don't know what stuff is. But it does make sense that a cat wouldn't know, but he does know like what certain things are. And yeah. So that's a good observation for sure. Yeah. I'm imagining just a version of this game where all you do is knock stuff off of shelves to solve the puzzles. That would be fun.
That would be really good. A fun reveal. Did you notice you were just batting balls of yarn the whole time?
Yeah. Aha. Ooh, yeah. Anything else about Ghost Trick that you want to make sure we don't forget about before we wrap this up?
And I think that pretty much covers it. You know, my conclusion for the spoiler section is I'm glad that you mentioned Metal Gear Solid, because this is the most... It's like Metal Gear Solid with some of the Kojima removed from it, but all the same, the same ride, you know, the same roller coaster happening. So if you want that in a different form, enjoy the story, my friends.
Yeah, exactly. And we've bounced around in a weird order in the spoiler section. There's a bunch of stuff that we didn't talk about. So like, even if you're here, and obviously if you're still here, you know, the big twist, you know, like the 3 biggest twists, I guess. Yeah. There's still a lot of fun to be had on the ride, and who knows, maybe you'll forget that it was a cat, and in 8 months you'll boot the game up and be like, they said it was some kind of animal. All right, well, so we'll find out. A raccoon, maybe? Yeah. So, yeah, it's a really fun ride, and again, the Lost comparison's good. Like, I don't love the very last thing that happened, but I had a lot of fun on the ride, and it doesn't really diminish that. It's just like a note to talk about when talking about the story. Otherwise, you like hard to understate how in I was at basically all of those other plot twists where it's like, oh fuck, Lynn shot me. Like, oh man, what's going on? Like that level of like buy-in in the story here. And it's probably not fair, but I'm playing a lot of games all the time. And I was playing Ghost Trick alongside probably at least 3 other games. And for a game to like hit me with that level of buy-in, so it's like, I got an hour to play, I'm going to pull out Ghost Trick because I want to see what happens next. Like that's good shit.
Yes. I was very satisfied. I was very happy, validated that, you know, I have a lot of fondness for this game, and there was a little part of me worried that some of that would have been kind of like a small ember that was lit in 2010 that has just kind of grown into a blaze over time as my brain filters out the parts that are a little bit rougher around the edges. But yeah, replaying it now, I was like, just like you, I was immediately right back in there. I was all in, and I was having a great time the entire time. So it's a really, really fun experience. I hope people check it out.
Yeah. Love when that happens too, when you revisit like a nostalgic favorite and you're like, no, actually this does have the sauce. Yeah, this is great.
Yeah. This ripped the whole time. Yeah.
15 way to go, years of being correct. 15 years ago. Yeah. Love it. Nothing better than being correct for a long time and continuing to be correct. So, Steve, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you coming back on the show. Appreciate you going through this game with me. Thank you. Thanks for the time. Of course, almost 2 hours of podcasting. So this has been good. I appreciate you.
Yeah, it's been a great time. Thank you for playing a game that I love so much. Thanks for the time to talk with me about it. And I'll just be looking forward to our next chat.
Of course, there will be a next one for sure. And for everyone who's still with us, a reminder that you should, as the music plays us out. Go down in the show notes, check out IndieQuest, Polykill Podcast. Check out Steve's YouTube and Twitch channels as well. There's a lot of good stuff out there for you. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. And you're my hero, as always. If you're here at the end of the episode, tune in next week for the next game to come out of the backlog.
So Many Games is an independent video game website from a group of passionate people. With a team of over 10 writers doing their bit for game discoverability, you'll surely find a game that will pique your interest. Our reviews delve into the main elements of the game and how they made us feel. With unbased but fair critique and AI-free writing, we hope to offer you a safe place to find out if a game is worthy of your time. But we also write articles from Steam Next Fest catch-ups to topics of interest from the gaming world. And we also publish written interviews from developers to voice actors on our bid to shine some light on the people behind our favourite games. But that's not all, as we also offer a monthly podcast interviewing developers, artists, composers, voice actors, and anyone else we can think of to come and talk about their experiences of making their latest, or not so latest, projects in real time. With a fortnightly newsletter to go on top of our offerings, there really is something for everybody. So what are you waiting for? Get on over to somanygames.co.uk and see for yourself all the amazing content that we have waiting for you.
Listen to Flashback 64, the chronological Nintendo 64 podcast. Hosts Gooey, McKenna, and friends flashback to the 90s and early 2000s with a look at the Nintendo 64's catalog and its contemporary cultural and historical context. Starting with the console's launch titles and proceeding in release order, we discuss classics like GoldenEye, Super Mario 64, and Star Fox 64, as well as some not-so-beloved games, lesser-known titles, and everything in between. Along with game-specific deep dives, we also cover other bits of pop culture from the time, like films, music, and more. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.